All right, well, welcome to today's Mark Allen Coaching Zwift Group live chat on Facebook. It's a beautiful Sunday here in Santa Cruz. We're having summertime now. That means fog in the morning, beautiful sunny afternoons. And last week we were treated to one of the best south swells I've ever seen since I've lived here in almost 20 years. So I was in the water a lot. The swell is gone. I'm back riding, back running, doing the things that keep me in condition. So I hope you've had some good workouts the past week or so. I haven't done any training today. I always like to give you an update on what I've done today. You know, there's a study that showed that if you have a fairly stressful lifestyle, if you exercise in the morning aerobically, meaning you're not doing a full-on hard track session, that it will actually help lower your stress hormones and keep them low throughout the day. Much better than if you wait till the end of the day when your body is completely stressed out and then you do your exercise. So depending on your lifestyle, your commitments, if you do have a fairly high stress lifestyle, if you can, get a workout in before you launch into everything for the day. It'll keep you more even. Anyway, today, the live chat is talking about how to race at a hot Ironman. And this was inspired because 2 weeks ago I was at Ironman Frankfurt, and the temperature was absolutely incredibly hot. Records were set, high records all over Europe. Same day as the Nice Ironman, Ironman France in Nice. Just blistering hot. It was 102 degrees, about 40 degrees centigrade. For the women when they came across the line, and that was in the shade. So you can guess how hot it was in the sun. Everybody suffered. I mean, there was nobody who came across that line looking like, hey, this is just a piece of cake. Part of it, indeed, was because it was Europe, and they just don't get as much heat as, say, you know, if you're racing in Langkawi or somewhere like that, and you're training in that area, you're just used to it. You know, I mean, it's still hot, you have to deal with it, but when it goes from kind of one temperature to a completely different stratosphere, when you're racing, there's some things that are very, very important to kind of keep in mind. So before I talk exactly, specifically about how you can race well in a hot Ironman, let's go back to what racing actually is. When you're in an Ironman, you're pushing your body, right? I mean, you're trying to get the best out of it that you can. And so as the day wears on, what happens is your body is starting to get more and more depleted. Things are starting to break down, you know, especially on the marathon with the impact of running. Muscles start to break down. You get tired. You might be getting a little low on calories. The effort level is a very long, sustained effort level. And so there's a part in your brain that is hardwired for survival. And when you start getting toward the edge of your limits, that part of your brain starts to really fire strongly, and it's trying to get you to slow down. It's trying to get you to stop. And that's why in every Ironman, we all have those conversations with ourselves where we have to sort of rekindle our commitment to getting to that finish line, because it does get hard. And the survival part of our brain is telling us, slow down, stop, take it easy. And you come up with all of these amazing justifications where in that moment they kind of sound good, but you know that later you'd go, why did I quit? I could have taken another step, right? So anyway, as an athlete, as a competitor doing an Ironman, you get really good at overriding that survival part of your brain that's telling you, slow down, stop, pull the plug, go sit down, go in the shade, whatever it is. That survival part of your brain kind of goes up another level when you're racing in heat, because not only are you dealing with the distance of the race, but your body is having to deal with dissipating heat. Heat is, when you have extreme weather, that is heat stress. It's the same thing as emotional stress or dietary stress or physical stress. Your body's having to deal with an extreme heat. So let's say in Ironman Frankfurt, you know, people are out there running the marathon and it's over 100 degrees, over, you know, 40 degrees centigrade. Not only is the survival part of their brain that's tuning into muscle breakdown and depletion of glycogen and all that kind of stuff, but it's tuning into the fact that they're having to deal with dissipating a lot of heat, getting that heat out of their body. You have to override that. And so when you override that sort of doubled up survival part of your brain, because now, like I said, it's dealing with the distance of the race and the temperature. You have to sort of go into a super overdrive, override of that survival part of your brain that's telling you to stop. Okay, if it's more calm, more temperate temperatures, it's moderate, it's in the 70s, or 20 degrees Celsius or whatever, you're not dealing with the heat stress so much. Um, so to override your survival part, you're only dealing with one aspect, the distance of the race, the longevity of you being out there racing. So what happens when you have these two huge elements that your body's telling you stop, slow down, quit, and you're overriding it to keep going, to keep on track, to keep on pace? You need a strong override switch. And when you go into that strong override, it slowly shuts down your ability to think logically, to actually tune in and do the things that you know you should be doing for your body to keep it uh, in line with the effort that you're going through right there. So what does this mean? Well, when you have to go into super override of your survival mechanism in your brain in the race, especially it usually comes on the marathon, you stop paying attention to how much you're eating. You stop paying attention to how much you're drinking. Another thing's happening. When you're in the heat, so much of the blood is going to your skin, right? It's trying to get rid of heat. The blood is going to the skin. It's going away from your stomach, away from your digestive system. So it actually gets harder to take in calories, to absorb calories, than it would be in a more temperate temperature race where it's more comfortable. The blood is still staying in the stomach. It's still staying in the working muscles. In really high heat and humidity, the blood is going to the skin, it's going away from working muscles, it's going away from the digestive system. So all of a sudden, your energy delivery transport from taking in your sport drink, going into the bloodstream, and getting to the muscles, it's all slowing down. You're not absorbing as quickly, and there's not as much blood flowing to your muscles. It's flowing to the surface of your skin to try and cool you off. Okay? So what happens? If you start to get behind on calories in a hot race and or hot humid race, you can fall off the edge really quickly, meaning that it's first of all, it's going to be very hard to catch back up on the calories that you're getting behind on. But secondly, since there is less delivery of nutrients to the muscles to keep you working at that high level, the fall off of getting behind on calories is really quick. In less humid and hot Ironman races, that slide can be gradual. So if you start to get behind on calories, you notice it, and it's like, oh, I better do something about that. Your brain is also thinking, because you're not in that hyper overdrive of your survival mechanism. And so you go, oh, I'm getting behind on calories. Next aid station, you get a little more to eat. You get a little more to drink. You slow your pace down just a little bit, and you compensate, and then you're able to sustain it again. In the hot races, the slide happens very quickly. You start to go into survival mode where you are overriding your survival instinct to slow down, to stop, to quit, because it's so hot and it's long. You stop taking in all the calories that you normally do. That just seems to be one of the patterns that can happen if you're not aware of what's going on. And that slide in your energy levels dropping goes very, very quickly. And as it starts to go really quickly, then your logical part of your brain, it's getting even harder for you to realize what's going on. I want to give you two examples of the extreme of this in professional athletes. Okay? In 1995, Paula Newby-Fraser was winning the Ironman in Kona, Hawaii. It was a very, very hot day, very windy day. Bike times were 20 minutes slower than normal, so we were using a lot more calories to get to the marathon than we ever did before. And it was hot, and it was dehydrating dry out there on the bike course, and then very humid in town on the run. Paula went into that hyper overdrive to override her survival mechanisms as the marathon continued on. She was in the lead. She started to slow down. She started to falter. She would stop in the middle of the road right as she got toward Pawnee Hill to come back down into town. When she got down on Kuakini, the flat part at the bottom of the hill when you get into town there in Kona, just, a mile from the finish line, she was really struggling. And then when she got to the corner to make that right turn onto Ali'i Drive, she collapsed onto the pavement and couldn't get up. She was laying there. Karen Smyers ended up winning that year. Paula finished, but it took her a long time. An almost exact scenario happened in Frankfurt with Sarah True. She was leading the race with 700 meters to go in the marathon, a 6-minute lead. She fell down on the ground and collapsed. She had been struggling. She had been weaving and going back and forth across the road. She'd try to run, and then she'd kind of stumble, and then she'd have to regroup herself. She'd start walking again and then try to run. And that's another thing that happens when people get behind on their calories in a hot race like that. They forget that thing that says, hey, all I have to do is walk and I will get there. But they try to run. And so she, again, as Paula did, got behind on the calories a little bit. The energy drop was dramatic and quick, and so all of a sudden she completely forgot to do the things that are just second nature when you're thinking clearly. Eat and drink and slow down. In hot races, eat, drink, and slow down. Those are your 3 things that will help you to have a great Ironman in a very hot climate. Eat, drink, and slow down. Okay? It's going to be a different sensation than in a more temperate race than that you may have done in other places. What's the common thread between what happened to Paula and what happened to Sarah? I spoke to both of them at different points after the race. Both of them had forgotten to take in calories. Paula had some, she had a lot of nutrition on her bike. She didn't take it all in as planned, as she needed to, as she knew she had to. She had already won 7 Ironmans at this point in Kona. She was going for number 8. She had the experience, but when she went into that hyper override of your survival instinct, the logic completely left her. Sarah True, after the race, she goes, I don't know what I was thinking. She said, had I just walked, I would have won. A 6-minute lead with 700 meters, I could have walked it. I was trying to run. I don't know what I was thinking. But the thing that she also had in common with Paula, she had some gels that she planned on taking that she didn't take in. And the last aid station that she went by, she didn't even take anything. She needed calories. That's all she needed. So, why am I telling you all this? It's a long way of saying, in a hot race, really pay attention to your nutrition. You probably won't get behind on liquids because there's aid stations. It's actually very easy to get in a lot of liquids. You can only absorb 30 to 40 ounces an hour anyway, 1 liter to 1.5 liters of fluids per hour anyway. That's fairly easy to get in. But when you start to have to override your instinct to slow down, to stop, to quit, you start losing your analytical side of your brain, that planning side of your brain that just pays attention to all these little subtle signs that might be saying, take in those calories, slow it down just a little bit, don't try and run fast, run a little bit slower, slow your pace, maybe even walk, but if you walk, try to do it with just as much ease as you can and pay attention to your nutrition. I've thought about this for many years. These type of collapses don't seem to happen when the weather is cool or moderate in an Ironman. These epic collapses happen in the heat. And a lot of people think that the collapse is because the athlete is dehydrated, because they didn't take in enough fluid, enough liquids, their body's overheating, which for sure your body is hot and it's overheating, but you can manage that because you're trained for it. And our bodies are super good at handling excess heat. However, because of what's happening, that battle between your survival part of your brain that's trying to get you to pull the plug on the race and the override switch that makes you a great competitor, they get in this war. All of a sudden, the analytical part of your brain that's needs to get you to take in calories forgets. And it doesn't take much because, again, there's not much blood flow to the digestive system or as much blood flow to the working muscles as there would be in a cooler race. The blood's going to the skin to dissipate the heat. I had a couple of epic collapses too. Collapses also. One year I started actually walking well before the half marathon point. It was walk, jog, walk, jog, walk, jog in Kona. Fortunately, I stayed on top of my nutrition. I was able to keep my calories going in. I didn't have the complete fall down collapse, but it was close. That happened again. The first year that happened was 1984. The second time it happened to me was in 1987. And it happened later in 87. It happened with about 10 miles to go, which is still quite a ways away. But again, I kept just enough clarity in my thinking to stay on top of keeping the calories going in so that I didn't go into complete override collapse. So keep this in mind when you're doing your long races. 3 things that will help you to stay on track to have a great hot Ironman. 1, obviously stay up on your hydration. 2nd, have your calorie intake plan pretty well dialed in, and make sure that you don't end the race with a bunch of packets of your gels or whatever it is that you're taking that you had planned on taking to get you across the finish line in a fast time. Okay, make sure you stay on track with that. And if you feel your energy levels dropping, there's a couple things you can do. 1, obviously take in calories. See if that helps. If that has no effect, try taking in some sodium. Often the sensation of needing sodium and needing calories is very, very similar, and you can't tell the difference until you try one and see which one works. So if you're behind on calories and you take them in, obviously you'll start to feel better. If your energy isn't coming back, it's getting harder to concentrate, take in some sodium that you can taste. You have to taste it for your body to know it's coming and to utilize it really quickly. Within about 90 seconds to 2 minutes, you're going to start to feel better if that was what was the problem, low on sodium, okay? But again, keep on the calories. Kind of simple sounding, right? Hopefully you won't have any of the epic collapses like Paula Newby-Fraser, or like I almost had, or like Sarah True had in Frankfurt. But if you are pushing your limits, these things can happen in hot races. The good news is if you stay on top of those things, your hydration, your calorie intake, and slowing your pace down just a little bit from what you would do in a cooler climate, you will have a great race. You'll feel good all the way through. One of the reasons that you have to slow down, again, goes back to where your blood is going. It's not going to the working muscles. It's delivering less oxygen per minute to your working muscles than it would in a cooler climate where the blood can stay deep inside your body in the working muscles. Okay? So it's impossible to go as fast, as we all know, in a hot race as it would be to go in a cooler climate race. Simple stuff. But when we get out there racing, we try to stay at that same standard of speed and power that maybe we had set for ourselves when we're training in cooler climates. Very simple stuff. So let me just see, if anybody has any questions, please type them into the box here. I just thought that this was a really important topic to cover simply because I saw what happened to Sarah True 2 weeks ago in Frankfurt. I was reflecting back on 1995 when Paula had her just this really horrendous collapse. Like I said, she goes, I had nutrition on my bike that I planned on taking it, and one of the bottles was completely full. Sarah True, I had gels on me that I was going to take on the marathon, and I just forgot to take them. I went through an aid station, and I didn't even take anything. This was right before her collapse. The logical part of your brain's not working right. Okay, let's see. Got one question here, actually 2 questions. What are your thoughts on a swim series to improve the swim? I remember you saying marathon training isn't a good way to improve your run. Just curious about the Waikiki rough water swim. A few weeks ago, I recall you mentioning a new fuel. Okay, so let me talk about the open water swim. Yeah, for sure. If you do an open water swim race, it's sort of like doing a 5K or a 10K running race to improve your running in triathlon. You can do longer open water swims than, let's say, you would do in a running race to get you better in the triathlon. Like I said, I have often said I don't recommend triathletes doing a marathon to a straight marathon thinking that that will help them get better in their marathon and an Ironman. It's much better to do 5K, 10K, maybe half marathon distance races so you can run really fast. In the water, you don't have the same muscle breakdown. So if you do the Waikiki rough water swim, the swim that was the very first Ironman swim, 2.4 miles there, sure, it's great. It's awesome. It will help you to race better in any distance triathlon that you're going to do, especially if you're doing an Ironman. Yeah, the drink actually that I've been testing, and so far it's been really good, is Maurten, Maurten. It's out of Sweden. Go to their website, look at what they have to offer. To say all the athletes who have tried the drinks and their gels out really seem to respond well to it. Maurten, Maurten. They're out of Sweden. Check that out. And get back to me if you try the products and let me know what you think. Let's see. See if there's any other questions. Well, I think that about covers it. Again, if something comes to mind about your racing or this chat later on, please feel free to email me or post your question there. This gets recorded live. It will be in the Mark Allen Zwift group where you're at right now, so you'll be able to see it live. Again, just to recap, in hot races, stay on top of your hydration. 30 to 40 ounces an hour is about the max people can absorb. Any more than that, it's going to slosh around. You're going to get nauseous. Stay on top of your nutrition, especially as the race goes on. We tend to not have as much hunger when we get tired and we're hot. So in a hot race, a hot Ironman, make sure that you really start to focus in on that nutrition as the race progresses, especially when you get to the end of the bike and when you're out there on the marathon. If you start to see your energy levels drop, especially again if it is late in the marathon, eat, drink, and if those don't bring back your energy levels, try taking in some sodium that you can taste, because that will help your body to absorb it, to utilize it very quickly and efficiently. And if that was it, you're going to feel good in just about, like I said, 90 seconds, 2 minutes after taking it, the sodium. Try to be aware of when your override is happening to get your survival instinct to get you to shut down the race and quit. Be aware when you're really having to do that. Keep that as best as you can. Try to keep a logical part of your brain tuned in to what's going on. Do I need more to eat, more to drink, less to eat, less to drink? Do I need to just slow my pace down a little bit? And if you do that, you are going to have an incredible race. Those races that I fell apart, the Ironmans that I fell apart, my times weren't that great, and they wouldn't have been that great anyway. So it wasn't like I was pushing too hard necessarily, because when I finally did put it all together in 1989, I bettered my best Ironman time by almost 30 minutes. So clearly, in the first really good Ironman that I had in Kona, I was going really hard compared to what I had done in the past because my time was so much faster. So it wasn't necessarily about the pacing for me in those races. It was about I got a little behind on the nutrition, as Paula did in 1995 at the Ironman, as Sarah True did just a couple weeks ago in Frankfurt. Catch it before you go off the cliff. All right? Well, good. We're going to be having another group ride on Tuesday on the Zwift in Zwift, and then the next live chat will probably be right around the 1st of August. There's a lot of races coming up, and a lot of people are traveling, and I'm traveling a little bit too. So stay tuned. I'll always post when these are going to come up, and I look forward to seeing you at the next one. Thanks for stopping by. Mark Allen from the Shed, where I do the Shed Talks and the Facebook live chats. We'll see you soon. Take care.